Welcome to the latest episode of Poetry Drip with some super special guests. We have today a poetry powerhouse couple from London. The poetry powerhouse couple is made up of Cher, or the guy with the purple tie, and Terry, blue-eyed poetry. These two beautiful humans have met online on Twitter and they connected through poetry. They then ended up creating a poetry powerhouse couple platform, and they are now really well known and adored on the open mic scene in London, where I met them a couple of weeks ago on a show. And I was just so touched and impressed by their stage presence, their passion for poetry, the way that they were just so original and natural in their words. They are both very passionate about mental health healing, and they created a platform meant to provide a safe space for people who express their mental health challenges through poetry. And in Terry's words, they want to offer the love that they share for each other to others through this platform. I should mention they are engaged. Well, the power of poetry, huh? Well, welcome to the Poetry Drip, Sharon Terry.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
That was an amazing intro.
A really lovely introduction.
Yeah. And the voice is what makes it like you hear it on the podcast, but when you hear it
you
in
can
person,
hear it in my ear.
Yeah. Thanks so much for that.
You guys are so sweet. Thank you for that. I'm really happy to spend this hour with you. I mentioned briefly before we started, I really take pleasure in this episode because I get to know the artist, and I get to spend time with you guys. Otherwise I wouldn't know you, and I know nothing about you other than we spoke for 10 minutes now, and I'm so intrigued to hear more about how did you get into poetry. You met online, you started this platform, you have a bunch of followers that really love and adore you, and on top of that, you also told me you have writing projects, and Terry, you're working on a fairy tale collection, and Cheryl on a fictional novel, and you want to get that out. So I so admire that about people when I see young people passionate about what they do, like yourselves, and dedicating that time to it. That is rare. Not everybody does that. So let's start from the top. Tell me about your journey with poetry. How did you start writing poetry? When and why? And maybe,
Ladies first.
Ladies first, yes.
So with me, actually wasn't intentional. I was going through a bit of a hard time. I moved from London to Birmingham in the UK for university, and anxiety and depression was definitely very heavy at that point, and I was just writing. To me, it was just writing. I didn't see it as anything special. And then fast forward 6 years and I meet Cher, and he read some of my stuff. You know, I felt comfortable enough to start sharing some things over video call at the time, because he was in London and I was in Birmingham. As I say, we met on Twitter, so it wasn't in person straight away. And when I was reading out what I wrote, he said, "You do realize that that's poetry?" And I was like, "No, it's not poetry, I'm just writing." And he was like, "I've told you that I do poetry and I go to events. I'm telling you that that's poetry." And I had no self-confidence then whatsoever. So to have someone who you were kind of interested in saying those words, and it gave me a bit of confidence. And I think it definitely boosted me to try and see it as poetry, I guess. And once we met, then he pulled me into the scene a bit more, because he'd been on the spoken word scene for about 2 years.
Roughly 2 years, nearly 3 years.
About 2 years at that point. And he took me along. It was very tough, but I really enjoyed it. And from there, I guess my individual writing has come a long way, a very long way.
Yeah.
So
Brilliant.
he has a lot of thanks.
And
So
yourself.
Cher inspired you and encouraged you to pursue poetry. Do you remember? I just thought of this. Do you remember on Twitter what was it that got you together? What was it? an image, a piece of poetry? How did you interact? What was it?
Honestly, it was by luck.
Yeah.
By luck.
I
Okay.
think we popped up on each other's feed.
He just saw a picture of me.
Yeah.
And he took a jump.
Yeah. I don't know where I got the courage from, but yeah. But yeah. And
hey, I like what I see. Yes.
Exactly. And then we kind of later down the line realized, oh, wait, you know, one of your friends that you've been working with for about 5 years. And it turned out that that same friend was someone
that's not very clear. Long story short, my best friend, who is my best friend now, he has known since they were in year 7 at school.
Wow.
So I told her that I'd met somebody, and I told her his name, and he has quite a specific name. And she said he's from West London. I said, yeah. She said, I think I know him. And I asked him if he went to her school, and he said yes. And then they kind of reunited. My guard went down because my best friend said he's a lovely boy.
And the rest is history.
Yeah.
The rest is history.
Indeed, and it's official. I love to hear about these stories, how people accidentally, quote unquote, met, because I don't believe in accidents or coincidences. These things are beyond our understanding sometimes. Not to say beyond our control, but definitely beyond our understanding. So you actually already had ties or connections, but through the power of mighty internet, you connected. Beautiful. So Cher, tell us a little bit, how did you get into the poetry scene in London? How did you start?
So for me, it started when I started my journey with my novel that I'm writing currently. I started out around about the age of 12, quite young. And I didn't see it becoming anything serious at first, but it very, very quickly spiraled, and it was, getting its legs. But at the age of, I think it was 16, after, GCSEs and, college work and everything else, I had to put a pause on it for a long time. And that led to me having what's called writer's block. And one of the ways that, I was trying to shift out of writer's block was journaling. And I'm not gonna lie to you, journaling didn't last very long. I would forget to put entries in some days, and some days it'll be a week and whatever. But I then just, it's so weird. Again, it's like that random coincidence, but it's not random, like you said. But I kind of just picked up the word eyes, and it wasn't a journal anymore. And it started turning into a rhyming scheme, and it started flowing very differently to how I was writing my journal. And then it just, after that one piece, more and more and more were written. And I was like, this is all good and well, it being in my journaling book, but it's meant to be performed. Now, I'm a big procrastinator. So when I searched up open mic nights in London back, nearly 3 years ago, I was very much like, oh, I'll go another day. Oh, I'll do it another time. But, half of me was battling myself and saying, look, if you keep saying that, you're never going to go. So I eventually landed on one, which was in East London, funnily enough. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to put it in my calendar, because that was what helped me commit. I'm going to put it in my calendar. Once I put it in my calendar, that's it. There's no backing out. And that's when the journey started. And since then, I've been, going from north, south, east, just performing where I could.
Sometimes 5 events a week, apparently.
Yeah. It was headache. It was headache. I was working at the same time in a school. So it would be working, luckily not, Monday to Friday, but still each day that I was working, I think it was 3 days a week, I still had, 2 or 3 events in a week, or maybe more at times. Like I would have 5 events in a week. And I realized I got drained very quickly, but we figured it out, and I found a balance, and and now we go together.
That's really impressive, I have to say, because it really does take courage to take something super personal and intimate, such as your internal thoughts, something you journal, and take it out into the world. And I always want to know, and especially in your case, you were writing, and then as you described, it drifted into poetry by itself. It naturally went into there, which is one of the most beautiful things that can happen, because you don't intend to write poetry, it just goes there. Then you said something like, hang on a minute, this has to be shared. Are you able to tell us what was it internally that triggered that? What clicked? What made you think, I can't keep this to myself, I have to share this with others?
I mean, for me, it was a case of, I felt very stuck in the sense of, I was just writing in this book that I have, and I still have it. It's a very small little diary. And I was just writing in that, and it was, the pages were getting filled up, but I was like, I didn't feel like my cup was being, poured to the fullest. I felt I was very much just, and I wanted, you know what it is as well? It was a case of, I was bored. I was at my mom's house back then. This was before I got my own place. And I was like, I want to go somewhere. And I think I had watched, there's a very famous poetry page on YouTube called Button Poetry. And I was like, I was watching these performers and these people reacting to their pieces. And I was like, I kind of want that. And I was like, I want to go to a place like that. And that's when I think it sparked for me, like, okay, this is all great, it being in the book, but I need to perform this. I want that kind of reaction. I need to meet other people like me who, and I hadn't known how big the scene was in London. And I think it surprised me when I started dipping my toes in, oh, wait, there's 7 events in a week. Like, it was a shock to me. So yeah, I think that was where that sparked from.
Right. So you wanted to meet other people like yourself and just, perhaps this is just my interpretation, maybe feel like you belong, like you're part of the same tribe, people who write about what you write and share it. Because I loved it when you said your cup wasn't quite full, which I totally can relate to. I feel that words, with writers or poets or creators in general, the messages come through us. They're not from us, they're kind of through us, and we're kind of conduits to it. And it almost feels, to me, that's why I decided to publish. I got to a point where I felt it's a selfish decision to keep this for yourself, because one, it doesn't come from us. We all connect to the same collective consciousness source. And two, if this arrived on my paper, then messages are to be shared, they're not to be put in a drawer somewhere. So anyway, I can relate to that. I'm glad to hear it. So now rolling forward a little bit, you met through Twitter and you started the exchange in poetry. And how did you get to create the Poetry Powerhouse Couple platform?
I think it was a case of, we at this point had realized, okay, we both write somewhat of what's called poetry, even though one half of us doesn't fully believe it, no names. And I think
thanks, babe.
Yeah, you're welcome. And I think, at that time, I think this was in lockdown, correct me if I'm wrong. And at that time, I myself was already on the online scene, because everything in person was gone. There was no way that we could perform, and everyone was panicking. And online events started popping up left, right, and center. And I think I was already establishing myself online in the sense of jumping on several different open mics, maybe too many for my own good sometimes. But through that, I think then it was when I introduced yourself to slowly start venturing, because we hadn't gone to an in-person event yet.
From what I remember, obviously before we met in person, he would come off the video call to go and perform on an IG open mic. And I'd be like, why are you leaving me? Come back on the phone. He's like, I want to perform. And I'd be like, okay, fine. But because I hadn't caught up yet, I wasn't there. So when he finally came to Birmingham and we met for the first time,
you saw that in person.
He would, I remember the first time he was like, okay, I'm going to jump on this mic. And I'm sitting next to him in bed like, oh my God, you're going to go and plaster yourself all over the internet while we're sitting in bed and perform poetry. But then after watching him, I was like, that's quite cool. Like, maybe I could, no, I couldn't do that. And that's what my head went to. I went, I couldn't do that. Because like I said, where my confidence was at the time, I had nothing, no form of confidence. And the more and more I saw him do it, eventually.
And correct me if I'm wrong, like when I was back in London and you were up here in Brum, you would pop into the lives that I was doing, and she would watch and she would comment and she would interact.
On like my personal page, like my day-to-day, you post a pretty picture of yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think from there, it just spiraled into, you know.
From there, he gave me the confidence to do blue-eyed poetry.
And one day,
what happened.
I came back. I must have gone out somewhere and came back, and she must have jumped on the live, and she was like, I just performed on the live. I was like, what? Like, huh? Like,
I did
where was I? Like, and I remember very quickly we found pages which we were comfortable performing it.
Yes.
And the more we performed, and I very clearly remember the first time going on a page that we've been going on separately for a long time. And then one day we both came on together as was it as poetry? Yeah, as Poetry Powerhouse couple, and the host being like, what? You guys are together? Like, what? Like,
they didn't realize that we were a couple. They thought we were two separate people. Because I would always say, like, oh, the guy with the purple tie is my boyfriend.
Yeah.
And I don't think people pieced it together.
No.
Then when we finally did Poetry Powerhouse couple, they were like, oh. Which was very interesting.
And then that's also so before that, we used to go on another live, and the guy was just like, after seeing us maybe twice, was like, you guys are he's American as well. Y'all guys are the powerhouse couple, like with the accent and everything. Like, y'all guys need to be called the powerhouse couple. And
that's where that came from.
We jumped off and we were like,
yeah, makes sense.
Poetry Powerhouse couple. Oh, okay, that works. Like,
and I think because we'd seen other people doing the lives, from the get-go, if I'm honest, like I was like, oh, that's cool. I like that they're giving the space for other people.
Yeah.
And then once we heard that name from this gentleman, we were like, we could do that as well. Like, we don't have to just perform. Like, maybe we could go live and people could come and perform for us. And here we are now.
I think it was a couple of days after we got that name, maybe 5 at the most, where we started, and we said, you know what, let's test it. Let's see if people come in. And many people came very quickly.
Wow.
So we were like, okay,
you guys are amazing. I listen to you, and I watch the tandem between you. You complete each other's sentences. I really love. I love that. So I like to take my time and enjoy conversation, and I see that about you. But what I really, really value and appreciate when I see people, you guys don't sit a lot on your thoughts. You get an impulse or an idea, you immediately go out to test it, and you do something with it, and I say, maybe that will work. Well, I'm scared about it, I have no idea how to do it, but I'll have a go, and then I'll do it. So that's brilliant. I just wanted to just say that, because not many people do that. People sit on stuff for ages, and that takes courage. And again, you guys have loads of it. And the American guy that said the powerhouse, he got that right. Absolutely. So he tuned into that, and he was right on the money. So now you do these lives, and you even raise donations to support the performance. You told me about this briefly.
That's something that is very new. That we decided to trial this month, actually, in February. So the first, we do lives every Sunday. So tomorrow is the first Sunday where we're trialing the donation. That was given to us from a very close friend who's also in America. And she said, try it, like you said, you guys are quite spontaneous. You like trying things.
That was another very spontaneous thing.
And we said, okay. And to be honestly, I'm so grateful that people are willing to give back to the community and use us as a vessel to do that. That's really important to us, that people feel comfortable enough to donate to people that they may have never met. We've had people that have donated that have never met us in person, and can see the intention we're trying to give, and they feel comfortable enough to do that. That's really important for us. And so, I mean, it's gone well. I think we'll do it again in March. We said we'll do this once a month, where it's a donation one, because it's like a spin the wheel, and whoever it lands on is the person out of the open mic list who will win the money. So we've got the open mic list. We'll put their names in. Whoever it lands on, the money will go to them. And we've got the donations. People have signed up for the list. So if this works well tomorrow, then
Brilliant.
definitely I think once a month, this is something that we're looking to do. Definitely.
I think it was a case for us, like, you know, we realized, you know, ever since we've been on open mics and ever since we've gone to events in person, you know, it's tough for artists.
Yes.
It's very tough for spoken word and poets, especially if you have high bars like those who have become very, very successful. And unless to others it looks like unless you're this successful established person, you can't really get your foot in the door with poetry, but that's not the case. So we are trying to provide a way in which we can say, look, we've recognized you. This is our way of giving back to the community and giving back to you, so that later in life you can give back as well. And it just keeps that loop going. And it's like you said, we're vessels for poetry, and therefore we should be vessels for, you know, just giving a little head nod to other fellow poets, you know,
and trying to keep it fair. You know, that's why we did it with the wheel, so that people can see that it's not just us going, we're going to pay you because we're favoritizing you. No, it's going in a wheel, and we believe that fate will make the wheel land on who it's meant to land on. So to facilitate that just feels great. Incredible. And we hope that, you know, we can be recognized in that sense one day too. Like you said, it just goes round and round, and we give to each other. You're not going to get anywhere alone. It's not going to happen. So
I love that. That's really incredible. That's an amazing initiative you're doing, and absolutely right about being a poet in today's world. We live in a world driven by other values, and art is not necessarily as high as other domains and businesses. So indeed, it's not easy to even dream of making a living out of poetry. It's indeed a very rare thing out there, and you recognizing that and trying to make a difference. That's beautiful.
Trying to.
I think we can only try, you know. We can only try. And I grew up in Eastern Europe, where, you know, doing art was definitely not an option. You go to school, you get a job in engineer, lawyer, doctor, or you train as whatever, a welder, something. You just get a job, right? So there's no support in kind of developing careers in art. So this is one of the beliefs that forged into my mind that held me back for a very long time from publishing anything or posting anything I was writing, although I was writing since 12. And I see this even then moving to UK and living in London. You know what? It's very much the same. I mean, okay, you have a bit. What's different is the freedom of speech, and I spoke about this the other night when we met. There's other places in the world where you can't even do what you guys do. You cannot just go online and get anyone you want and talk about anything you like, and also gather money for that. So that is a privilege, and you guys recognize it, and that it's something that even today in other regions or other parts of the world, that's not possible. But you guys not taking that for granted and doing something with it. Again, I really, really admire that. And by the way, I'm down for Sunday as well. I'll be joining you for sure.
Yay, that's awesome. Thank you.
Before I ask you guys to perform a piece, I want to ask you one more question. I want to ask you, what is poetry to you? A couple of times, both of you said, "Oh, I'm not convinced. I'm writing poetry. I'm not sure that's poetry." And I want you to tell me what poetry is to you. But even before then, maybe let's just tell everyone where they can reach you. It's Instagram. Yeah, your platform is on Instagram.
Yeah.
And it's the Poetry Powerhouse Couple. I will put the details into the podcast episode description. You're also opening a YouTube channel, which will be up and running soon, but it's mostly Instagram, and I'll put both of your handles into the episode description.
Thank you.
Great. So what is poetry then?
You want to start?
You want me to start?
Yeah. To you.
Poetry for me has changed quite a bit since I started. For me, I've still kept my core basis of how it started for me, which was change. I had a strap line per se, which was changing the world one word at a time, which I still believe in today. But I feel for me, poetry is my way of taking the baggage off that I've walked into my house with from outside, putting it on a page, and then walking back outside and saying, "This is my baggage," without saying it so bluntly.
Because that was a poem on its own.
But I think for me, poetry has evolved more and more because it's now something, I'm starting a family, and it's now something that I want to give as a legacy, give to my future kids, and to have something, and this sounds very, very blunt, but we as humans, we live, we're born, we live, and we move on to the next life. And for me, my poems and my writing and everything else I invest my time into that can be tangible is something that is left behind and has my name on it. And I was here, I did this, but not in a cocky way, not in an arrogant way, but it's a more of I left this legacy for my kids, and now they're doing it too, hopefully. That's what poetry is to me.
It's your legacy.
Yeah.
If you want the honest answer, Paula.
Of course, always.
I still don't know what poetry means completely. As I said to you, for me, it was, I got a bit emotional there. That's so weird.
Yeah. No, that was heartfelt. I felt that. Yes.
Yeah.
In a positive, beautiful way. Yeah.
Yeah, it trickled, it really did. Like you said, trickled, it dripped. In a sense that I didn't know what it was doing. And I think it was healing me without me realizing for many years. And now it's become this fun, loving hobby that it doesn't happen as often as for some poets it may. That's what I mean. I definitely resonate more with the hosting side, and I found myself in that because I like to talk to people.
Yeah.
But when I really need something to lean on, and if he's not there, and I, need to be a bit more independent, I'm in a relationship and I love him and I'm happy, but I want to still be me and be my independent self. And when I don't want to lean on him, I've got my pen. And if I really need to write, I can tell you now, it does more than I ever thought it would. And I still don't understand even saying that. It's strange. And performing is a complete different, I think the performing for me was the confidence, like I keep talking about. I've only performed maybe I'm under 10 times, and I'm still coming off the stage I feel a bit better every single time. And I definitely don't, I don't know if you saw me at the last event we met, I was literally glued to my phone, I could not look up. But that alone is an accomplishment for me. You would never see me on Instagram on a live, you would never see me on a stage. It's just not something I vision for myself. So, and that's because of the basics of writing a poem. And that has given me that confidence and hope that I can do anything else that I really want to do and be spontaneous like we have been, and just keep going, and it gets better. So,
wow.
Yeah.
Beautiful. That was very touching. Indeed, I really love your honesty and saying something like, I don't know what poetry is. I think it's one of the most universal truths that exists out there, because we try to, we're humans, and the human mind has to give definitions to things. That's how we work. That's how our life works, on identifying things and name them. But I really felt that came from a deep place, because in reality, do we really know what anything is? Yeah. I don't really think we do. And thank you so much for reminding us of that. And I love the stability of Cher. He's very clear. Poetry, I use it as my tool and my legacy, and that's very fixed and very masculine. And your femininity is very fluid indeed, and I don't know what it is, could be anything. And that's why you two together are really beautiful to watch. It really is a perfect match, and match made in heaven. So
Yeah. Oh,
that
stop.
yeah, no, it really is. It really sweet to see, and
Thank you.
you're a different couple. You're not like any other, and people connect with you, not because you said Terry, that you were holding your phone and performing. People connect to the words. There's nothing more powerful than the word. I am definitely one for performance poetry. It's indeed a different, it's a different story altogether, rather than sitting down and writing something like share a sense. Is one thing, me sitting here writing, is other thing performing and sharing with people. But at the end of the day, word is the king. It's the words that you channel, the words that you put together and you connect, and people will feel into that, no matter how flamboyant you are, whether you're shy or not, or it's your first time or 11th time. It's ultimately the words. And then you guys are definitely good with that we know for sure.
Thank you.
All right, beauty, so what are you going to perform?
I think we decided that we're gonna go with a staple piece. This piece is one which we, when we did first start writing out couple joint pieces, was the very first piece we ever wrote. And I think you've heard this one, Paula, but it's one of our favorites to perform. It's called His Yang to Her Yang.
I was just saying that. He's into her yang. Amazing. Can't wait to hear it.
Hope you enjoy. Things were nice at first. It's like the crack of that first can. Though little did I know I was that can and you sucked out my soul. Thought you were bubbly, but I quickly realized you were just fizz and made my head cold as ice. You were too diluted, and I had too much flavor, so I don't like my Fanta with ice.
Cold were you. That I found out before I could run. You were quick to criticize. You were quick to create accusations. You were even smart enough to hack my accounts.
I wish I had an accountant for. I gave you the world, and you burnt everything you saw. I was young, and you were already experienced enough to leave me torn. I felt hunted down like a fawn. How could I have been in love when all I remember of you is an empty shadow
in the dark, due to the light that surrounds you? Fooled me into thinking that you were my knight in shining armor, to later find out your love, way of caring, and fascination with me was in fact as tough as the protection you wear. And that the light was not emitting from you. It was bouncing off the metal that concealed you.
You were already playing your games within my mind, running circles in the fragile imagination I already had, not knowing you had other plans. I thought I had known what love was with you. I thought we were the 1 + 1 = 2, but you had already started stealing parts of my heart, was breaking me not enough.
Time, patience, and understanding would never help me understand you. You never were fascinated with me. You were obsessed. Most obsessed over fame, addiction, and freedom. I thought you were my freedom. I thought you were the mix. I thought you were the fix which would mold me back together the way I mold my pots of clay. But instead you created cracks in my clay. And I tried to run, but you manipulated me faster than I could contemplate my escape.
Never seemed a possibility. It's funny how we imagine that key on the board, but can never seem to hit it. And I was never raised to quit it, but you wouldn't quit. It felt painful. How could I mend you when I was already bent into two? My back can no longer fall like a contortionist. I'm trying to pick you off of my shoulder like
lint suffocated my chest. The touch and smell of your clothing in every crevice of my home and me sent me into a whirlpool of emotion, distress, heartbreak, and anxiety. You caused me pain. You caused me confusion. You aided my brain to conclude that I was the problem. You aided my brain to be controlled, mutilated, and crushed, the same as my heart.
But that's not you. You understood that underneath this Ferrero shell is a fragile heart. Knew that my past was darker than my melanin. It was tattooed on my skin with invisible ink. You saw deeper into my soul than any I've ever met before. I see a diamond in your eyes buried by coal. I can only hope that I will now and forever make and keep you feeling
whole, like a full rounded circle. I feel like maybe the circle of life for us may now be completed. You are the king of my pride rock, and our pride rock is only just beginning. Maybe one day we will have our Simba. Maybe one day Rafiki will be there too. Oh, how you fill me with possibilities I never saw with him and never thought I would
clasp shut. I can now close that painful part in my heart. I feel that I've been given a fresh new start with you. I feel that our successes together we're
almost there. We're almost there.
And believe me, baby girl, when we succeed,
people gon' come here from everywhere
to see us bloom. You are the beautiful flower that I am lucky to have found in my
bouquet in my kitchen, chocolates in my fridge, paper spread on my bedspread filled with that heart on your sleeve. Baby, you got a friend in me. Ha. You got a friend in me. He made me feel like I couldn't have friends, but he wasn't my friend either. But with you, my friendships have blossomed like flower petals, and I've even created new friends. Oh, how normal it is to be indulged by you.
You give me stability, which I lacked in my limb. Though now I can stand straight, for I have you stood by me. I feel free and no longer in need of an escape, for my fathers in heaven have blessed me with a haven. She is now you. You are the blue in my hazel, and we were made for each other. That I can now see.
The way you stand tall like a lamppost shining bright in the night sky. You keep me sane through the panic attacks and flashbacks. You guide me through the trauma like a torch in the darkness. My heart implodes every time with the very thought of losing you, the way a submarine is crushed from the hydrostatic pressure of outside waters. Is this what true love is?
Is there such thing as being too deep in love? If so, I don't want it any other way. The love I had before was empty, hollow, and shallow. What you give me makes my crescent moon complete. I feel like the man on the moon. I'm able to now recognize the man in the mirror. My tie is on straighter, and you are now the suit, the crest that I wear on my suit with pride.
Pride was always a bad concept to me. But this pride we both feel has never felt so good. To be so intellectually connected, to be so intertwined like grapevines was such a surreal concept for me. I never knew love could be so compatible. Never did I think people like us could be so compatible. You were standing right in front of me, yet I never knew I would be the knotted tie to your purple. Purple never felt brighter. I never knew the color purple would be my lifeline. Before that day, I never saw you in my timeline. Before this day, I didn't think I would have someone in my timeline for a very long time. I felt incomplete, like a broken puzzle piece that did not fit. That all changed when I found you.
What shallow?
Oh, what the hell?
I love you.
I love you too.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Excuse me, I got goosebumps there at the end, so I'm just shaking it off a little bit. Give me a minute. Oh, wow. I really have, my eyes are watering. I'm not lying. I'm trying to keep it cool on the camera. No, I'm not. That's beautiful. So beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
It's been a pleasure to have you on. Thank you for the richness you bring and for the power in your words.
Thank you.
And for the audience, I'm absolutely sure you enjoyed the night, and consider what is the yin to your yang.
Thank you so much, Paula.
Thank you for coming. And
thank you for having us.
Until next time, take care of your poetic souls.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.